There's not a single study that compared relatively equivalent groups of people that shows that vegetarians or vegans have a lifespan advantage, period. There is not.
Hey, this is Ryan of Happy Healthy Vegan, bringing you yet another debunking of the extreme and outrageous claims, anti-vegan claims that Chris Kresser kept throwing out one after another in rapid-fire succession at Dr. Khan when they debated on the Joe Rogan podcast. And if you watched that debate as I did, I'm sure many of you experienced the same kind of feelings, just like anger, knowing that Chris is just throwing out all this crap, but he makes it sound really good, like he has all these studies supposedly supporting these extreme claims that he's making. And as I've shown in my 3 previous Chris Kresser debunking videos, these studies don't. And once again, he's full of it. He's not being truthful in his claims when it comes to longevity and vegan diets. Let's see what Chris says.
Total mortality is the most important endpoint we should be talking about here. That means deaths from any cause, right? If meat increases the risk of cancer and cancer mortality, then why aren't we seeing that in the studies that compared lifespan with vegetarians and omnivores?
I mean, is Chris serious here? Is he saying what I really think he's saying? Let's look at him say it one more time very clearly.
There's not a single study that compared relatively equivalent groups of people that shows that vegetarians or vegans have a lifespan advantage, period. There is not.
Really, Chris, not a single solitary study. Well, I don't know what to say because I have several studies here that, according to Chris, should not exist in this universe. I'd be super shocked if Chris was completely unaware of the plethora of research done on the Seventh-day Adventists, who are a pretty much homogenous group. They share a really similar lifestyle, much healthier than average American lifestyle. The main differences being looked at in these studies are their dietary differences. And remember, Chris was most concerned with studies measuring all-cause mortality. And this study measured just that and said vegetarian diets, which are meat-free diets, are associated with lower all-cause mortality and with some reductions in cause-specific mortality. More specifically here, heart disease and cancer, some of the leading causes of death.
There's not a single study that compared relatively equivalent groups of people that shows that vegetarians or vegans have a lifespan advantage, period.
Once again, it's 100% clear that Chris Kresser is 100% wrong in making that claim, and this isn't the only study. This study here compared the life expectancy of Seventh-day Adventists versus people from all around the world. And it's nice to point out that the Seventh-day Adventists had the longest life expectancies. But if you look within the group of Seventh-day Adventists, you'll see at the bottom here, the Seventh-day Adventist vegetarians had even longer life expectancies, approximately 1.5 to 2 years longer than their meat-eating cohorts.
There's not a single study that compared relatively equivalent groups of people that shows that vegetarians or vegans have a lifespan advantage, period.
And here's another study that compared vegetarian versus non-vegetarian Seventh-day Adventists and found that red and white meat consumption increased your risk for colon cancer. And check out these charts here from the study, which shows that those who ate meat were up to 3 times greater risk at getting colon cancer compared to the non-meat eaters. The risk differences between the vegetarians and non-vegetarians is so striking that the researchers say it is clear that for cancers of the colon and prostate and for fatal heart disease in men, vegetarian Seventh-day Adventists have an advantage over their non-vegetarian counterparts. They continue to say, moreover, these effects are related to both the reduced consumption of meat and the increased intake of plants. And Chris would be pleased to know that making comparisons within this special population reduces the likelihood of confounding by other non-dietary factors. So Chris, from this day forward, you must stop saying
there's not a single study that compared relatively equivalent groups of people that shows that vegetarians or vegans have a lifespan advantage.
It's completely false when you say that. When there's multiple studies, you look like a fool and a liar when you make such outrageous false claims. And a case in point here, remember on the debate when Dr. Khan and Chris were going at it about how what the USDA exactly said in their most recent recommendations about cholesterol. It seems like one of the two have to be lying.
The U.S. used to say don't eat much cholesterol, now they don't. They used to say limit your total fat, and now they don't.
That's wrong. Well, the USDA says in the guideline, eat as little cholesterol as possible.
Cholesterol is not a nutrient of concern.
Because they couldn't identify the exact milligram to recommend. It used to be 300.
Because
they said,
the science doesn't support limiting dietary cholesterol anymore.
Well, this is super easy to fact check. The USDA puts their dietary guidelines up on the internet for all to see, and let's see what they say exactly about cholesterol. Who is telling the truth here?
Well, the USDA says in the guideline, eat as little cholesterol as possible.
Cholesterol is not a nutrient of concern because the science doesn't support limiting dietary cholesterol anymore.
So if we read what the USDA says about cholesterol, it's plain to anyone who has eyes and a brain and can comprehend the English language, and I'm sure it's translated into other languages, that Chris Kresser is completely full of it. He is making stuff up, and Dr. Khan, what he said is 100% right. As Dr. Khan noted, the 2010 guidelines limited consumption of dietary cholesterol to 300 milligrams per day. It's not included in the 2015 edition. But, and here's what Chris doesn't understand, but this change does not suggest that dietary cholesterol is no longer important to consider when building healthy eating patterns. They say individuals should eat as little dietary cholesterol as possible. I don't see how they could be more clear. The USDA's own words here contradict what Chris was saying, what I debunked before, what he's saying about cholesterol being good for you, it's not bad for you, and saturated fat's fine for you. The USDA is actually recommending that people limit their foods that are rich in saturated fat and cholesterol. You didn't mention that, Chris.
Cholesterol is not a nutrient of concern.
It boggles my mind how any rational, truthful human could read what the USDA said there about eating as little cholesterol as possible. They can't give an exact milligram, but they still say eat as little as possible. And how Chris can pull out of that cholesterol is no longer a nutrient of concern. How does that even follow? It just completely blows me away about how dishonest Chris is, how he has been, and all these claims I've debunked throughout now my 4 videos on this matter. I don't even know if I'm done yet. I've just kind of scratched the surface, I feel. He threw out so much BS during that almost 4-hour debate. So let me know your thoughts down below. How does Chris get away with this? Does he sleep well at night knowing that he's intentionally, I believe, misrepresenting what the USDA says, what science says? Even the own studies he brought up, as I showed in previous videos, don't support what he claims they do. In fact, they support eating, not eating saturated fat and cholesterol-rich foods. So let me know your thoughts down below. Share this video with a friend who thinks Chris Kresser's advice is fantastic. Until next time, let's keep it honest, let's keep it truthful, and let's keep it carb, baby. Keep it carved. And before I go, I'd like to give some shout outs to our latest supporters on Patreon, Andrew, Terry, and Sherm. Thank you guys so much for helping us to be able to bring the show to everyone here on the reg. Without your contributions, it'd be a lot more difficult to do. And depending on how much you contribute, there's all sorts of rewards you can get, from t-shirts to Angie's ebook to our music. So thanks so much. We much appreciate it.
Got me spinning circles.